Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit BBQ. On today's video, I'm going to be making some mushroom bacon Swiss sausages. Stay tuned. All right, let's get started on these mushroom bacon Swiss sausages. I'm gonna go over the ingredients list. Obviously, that's gonna change depending on how much meat you're gonna be using. So I'm starting with 8.6 pounds of brisket meat. That's 3,904 grams. All I did was multiply 8.6 times 454 because there's 454 grams in a pound of meat. I'm using 1.1% salt, 1.0% black pepper, 0.6% garlic powder. I'm using 1.5% non-fat dry milk powder. That's gonna help bind the meat together and retain a lot of that moisture in our sausage. This never changes. The curing salt is 0.25% of the total weight. Baby Bella mushrooms, I'm using 17%. Bacon, I'm using 12%. And last ingredient, Swiss cheese, I'm using 12% of the total weight. All right, so first things first, I'm gonna cut up our bacon. I want this bacon pronounced in the sausage, so I'm not gonna dice it up super fine. Just some small cubes. All right, so I'm gonna cook up this bacon. Got my Smithy cast iron pan. Beautiful heirloom piece right here. If you guys don't have a Smithy cast iron, I highly recommend it. You can customize them, put your last name on the back of them, hand them down to your kids, your grandkids. Beautiful piece of cast iron. So I'm just gonna cook this bacon down a little bit. We're gonna have to cool this down, so that's the reason why you need to cook this first. You don't want to use warm bacon in your cold meat. All right, so the bacon is just about done. And do not toss that bacon grease because we are going to reuse that. All right, so now let's cook up our Baby Bella mushrooms right into the bacon grease. Now I'm using Baby Bella mushrooms, but you can use whatever mushroom you like. These Baby Bella mushrooms are also known as cremini mushrooms, but you can use portobello mushrooms, just the white button mushrooms. Any mushroom is fine. I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of wash your sister sauce. Now these mushrooms are not gonna take very long to cook down. All right, so the mushrooms have been cooking for about 5 minutes. They're nice and tender, and they've released a lot of their moisture. So I'm gonna take them out, juices and all. All right, so here's our brisket. And the reason I'm using this brisket right here is because I purchased a case of briskets, and this one was kind of small and kind of mangled up in the package. But that's what happens when you buy a case. So I'm just gonna cut this in to cubes. So anytime you buy a case of briskets, there's a good and bad with that because yes, you get a great price, but you never know what's gonna be inside that box. And this is that situation. Not a bad looking brisket, quite honestly. It's just a little small and a little bit mangled. And we do have this dark piece right here. I'm just gonna cut that off. You can use it, it's not gonna bother anything, but it doesn't look appetizing now. Now, if you guys are gonna be using a brisket to make your sausage, if it's got a really large decal, make sure you trim that down. And on the fat cap as well, make sure it doesn't have too much fat on it. This one's perfect, so I'm just gonna cut this down into cubes. Now, depending on the size of grinder that you guys are using is going to determine what size cubes you use. I'm using a 1.5 horsepower grinder, and I can feed pretty large cubes into it with no problem. All right, I'm gonna finish cubing up this brisket, set up my grinder, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so I've got my brisket loaded on my hopper. Now, here's a pro tip for you guys. One of the questions I get a lot is, how come I get some black material that comes out of my grinder? Well, what's happening is, now I'm using a foot pedal, and I highly recommend that you grab a foot pedal. But when you tighten this nut right here, you don't wanna cinch it down extremely tight, okay? Because what's gonna happen, that's gonna put a lot of pressure on the blade and the plate itself. And what's happening, especially when you run the grinder dry, the blade is just rubbing up against that plate right here, creating that black material. Now, you want to eliminate that as much as possible, because what's happening is the meat is staying stuck in between the blade and the plate and creating that friction. And that's where you get that black substance, okay? That's why I love using a foot pedal. Now, I like to start my grinder with some meat down into the chute just like this and constantly feed it, okay? Now, I've seen people grind meat before. They just turn the power on and that grinder is sitting there by itself, 100% dry. And again, what's happening is that blade is grinding up against that plate, creating that black substance. That's something you don't want to do. So I'm going to step on my foot pedal and start grinding. Now what you want to do is constantly feed the grinder, okay? Do not let it run dry. That's going to eliminate those little black particles. Now if I need to stop, I simply release the foot pedal, catch up to my grinder here, because this is a 1.5 horsepower and it grinds as fast as I can feed it. And there we go. This grinder made quick work of these 8.6 pounds of brisket. So another pro tip, you're gonna have some meat still stuck in this chamber. I like to grab some crushed ice and throw that down just like that. And that little bit of crushed ice is going to push whatever little meat we have left over. Here we go. And there you have it. All right, so our meat is all ground up. Now it's time to add our ingredients. Here's our garlic powder, our salt, our black pepper. Now, if you guys haven't seen my SPG sausage video, that's what I'm using for this sausage recipe, okay? The basic foundation is the salt, pepper, and garlic. That's the same ingredients that, again, I'm using for this sausage right here. So here's our curing salt, very little as you can see. Our milk powder. Now, since this is a small batch of sausage, I'm just gonna use my hands. I really don't wanna bust out my mixer and have to dirty it up and wash it, because that is a pain in the neck. So keep it simple. Mix all of our dry ingredients first, then we'll add everything else to it. Now, this brisket was partially frozen and it's still extremely cold, but before I stuff it, I will pop it in the fridge for a little bit. I'm gonna add just a little bit of water, about 4 ounces or so. All right, our meat is nice and tacky already. That didn't take long, maybe 5 minutes if that. And check it out, really nice and sticky. That's what you want. So now I'm gonna add the bacon, our mushrooms, and our Swiss cheese. Now this was a block of Swiss cheese, I just cubed it up. All right, just mix everything up. All right, so this is ready. I'm gonna toss this in my freezer for about an hour, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so our meat's been in the freezer for about an hour, and it is ice cold again. So I'm gonna load my stuff right here. And I gotta tell you, this smells so darn good. All right, just load your stuffing canister. Now I'm using about a 3/4 inch horn right here, which is perfect for the 32 to 35 millimeter casings that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to be using this preloaded casing from PS Seasoning, and I can usually fit about 15 pounds in one of these casings right here. So all of the ingredients that I'm using on today's video, I do get from PS Seasoning. It's a one-stop shop from casings to seasonings. I mean, you name it, they've got it. These casings are really easy to load, as you can see right here. Just pull out this plastic sleeve and our casing is in there. So I want the meat right here at the tip of this horn. So once I feel it, then I'll tie my knot on my casing. All right, so our meat is right here at the edge. At this point, just pull a little bit of the casing out and tie a knot. I always have my sausage sprinkler on standby in the event I have an air pocket, okay? This happens really quick, and look at this color. Oh, we had a blowout. And that was my fault. I was holding onto this casing too tight right here. So I'm just going to grab this, throw this back inside my canister here. All right, so I'm going to cut this casing, show you guys what I do to fix this. So I take out some of this mixture here, just so I can tie a knot. Toss this back inside my canister. Tie a knot on this end. And we start over right here. Tie a knot. Just like that, and we're ready to go. So another pro tip right here, depending on which stuffer you have, usually these pistons kind of screw on. So what I like to do, so I don't have a lot of sausage mixture left inside my canister, is loosen that piston a little bit. Maybe 4 threads or so. That's gonna make sure this piston goes down even lower, pushing down the little meat that you're gonna have left over on your canister. Now you don't want to unscrew it all the way because you can actually break it, but just unscrew it a few threads, just like that. Lower your piston. And trust me, just that extra little 1/2 inch is gonna push out any sausage you have left over inside your canister. And there we go. Back in business. Let me show you the inside of this canister. There's still a little bit of meat in there, but I gotta tell you, if I had not loosened that piston up a little bit, there'd be quite a bit of meat left in there. All right, so the only thing left to do is to twist our sausages, and I do have my pan marked right here at 6.5 inches. You can go as long as you want, but I like them at 6.5 inches. So measure 6.5 inches and just twist. Now if your casing is really loose, keep twisting until the casing is nice and tight, just like that, okay? I'll do one more for you guys. This casing is a little loose, so what I normally do is go around the 7-inch mark right here, pinch, measure out another 6.5 inches or so, pinch, and twist. Now while this one is tightening, it's also going to tighten the casing on this link right here. I do have an air pocket, so there we go. So again, keep twisting until the casing is nice and tight. Just like that, look at that, nice and plump, perfect. I'm going to twist these up and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so all the sausages are linked up and they look absolutely amazing. You can definitely see the texture in the sausage. You can see the mushroom, the Swiss cheese, the bacon. These are going to be amazing. So you don't have to use curing salt like I did. Now, if you didn't use curing salt, from this point, you can toss these on the grill if you want to, rest them overnight in your fridge, freeze them, do whatever you want to do with them. But because I did use curing salt, you got to give that curing salt some time to activate and really do its magic on these sausages. So I'm going to throw these in my fridge overnight, and tomorrow we will cold smoke them. Stay tuned. All right, so it's the very next morning, and I've got my Pro Max from Pro Smoker Smokehouses set at 115 degrees. I've got 2 shelves loaded inside the smoker, so I'm going to load up the sausages. So here are my 2 shelves right here, and look at these sausages, man. They've dried up in the fridge overnight. Oh yeah. So you want to make sure you leave enough space in between your links that we get smoke all the way around the sausage itself. All right, I'm going to shut the top door. All right, so I'm going to open up the bottom door. And I got my sawdust pan right here. I only filled it up about 1/4 of the way, wet it with water, make sure all of the sawdust is completely moist. So I'm going to set that on the burner. I'm also going to set the exhaust at 1/4 of the way open. Again, we are cold smoking at 115 degrees. It's not going to get terribly hot. So we'll see you guys in 1 hour. All right, so it's been 1 hour since we loaded up our sausages. I'm going to go ahead and increase the temperature. Just push this button in. And we're going to adjust it to 145 degrees. Just like that. Push the button in. Now we do have a light smoke going. I don't expect a whole lot of color change on these sausages. You can see right there. Not a whole bunch of color. In fact, they look the same, maybe a little bit darker. But trust me, at 145 degrees, We're gonna start to create some smoke. I'm gonna let these smoke for 1 hour at 145 degrees, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so another hour has passed at 145 degrees. Now we're gonna start cooking these sausages. So we've got to hit the menu button right here. Go to cook. Right there, we're set at 200 degrees. Just like that. Let's take a look at these sausages. They should have a nice color. Oh yeah. Definitely starting to get that nice reddish color. Looking really nice. You can see the mushrooms and that Swiss cheese. I'm gonna close the door. I'm gonna smoke these at 200 degrees for 1 hour, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, guys, we are at the 3-hour mark, and the internal temperature of these sausages just at 155 degrees. I did check the temperature on this one, and unfortunately, when you stab them to check the temperature, you are gonna lose some juice. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull them, ice them down. All right, so I've iced down these sausages, as you can see right here. And this is a question I get a lot. Why do I ice them down and then warm them back up and then eat them? Well, you're gonna ice them down to stop that cooking process, okay? Because they were already at 155 degrees. If you let them go, you know, you're gonna leak out a lot of fat, a lot of the fat from the sausages, and you don't want that. So icing them down is gonna cool them off really fast and stop that fat right where it's at inside the sausage. It's not gonna leach out. So at this point, you know, you can cool them down, vacuum seal them, and if you're gonna have a barbecue, just bring them up to 150 degrees and they're ready to go. But because we wanna taste these right now, I'm gonna let them cool down for about 20 minutes or so in the ice bath. Then I'm gonna throw about 6 of these back inside the smoker. You can use an offset smoker, a pellet smoker. I like to reheat them back at 275 degrees. And again, the internal temperature should be at 150 degrees. They get nice and plump as well, and that casing is nice and snappy. So I'm gonna let these cool for a little bit, grab a few of them, toss them back in the smoker, wait for the internal temperature to come up to 150 degrees, and we'll give them a taste. All right, so the sausages are ready, and they went back on the smoker for about 20 minutes maybe at 275 degrees. Now I did add a little bit more sawdust into my pan just to create a little bit more smoke. That gave us a little bit more of a reddish color on our sausages, but check these out. They look and smell absolutely amazing. You can see the mushrooms in there, the cheese. Oh yeah. Let's slice into one of these bad boys. So one thing I like to do right here is where I twisted the sausage, just cut that excess casing right there, just a little bit, just like that. You know what? Should I just snap this baby open? Let's do that and see what we got. Oh yeah, look at that, nice and juicy. Cheese right out of the gate. Man, this is looking really good. Man, these are really nice and juicy, and the aroma that's coming out of them is ridiculous. Look at that. Really nice tight bind. Extra Swiss cheese on this piece right here. Let's give it a try. All right, let's give these sausages a try. I grabbed this piece with that extra Swiss cheese. Has some bacon on this side right there. This is going to be magical. Here we go. Wow, are my first thoughts. This sausage is so freaking good. The flavor of that Swiss cheese, you know, sometimes Swiss cheese can be a little too strong, but man, it pairs well with these ingredients. Look at this. Oh yeah. That bacon, that mushroom flavor. This sausage is freaking amazing. Oh, and by the way, I did use hickory sawdust, so it's got a really good hickory flavor. And that sawdust is available from PS Seasoning, along with all of the ingredients and the casings that I use in this video. If you guys are into sausage making, check out the link below to PS Seasoning. Get yourself a nice discount on your order and start making some sausages. This is amazing. So as I mentioned earlier, the base foundation of this sausage recipe comes from my SPG sausage video. If you guys have not seen that video, I'm gonna leave it at the end of this video so you guys can watch it. From that point, you can add whatever you want. Green chili, cheese, bacon, whatever you want, spinach, cheese, mushrooms, and bacon. Add whatever you want to that SPG sausage recipe. I hope you guys enjoyed this sausage recipe. I know it was long overdue. If this is your first time to my channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Until next time, Joe with Smokin Joe Spit BBQ. See ya.